Welcome to the Podcast Lab, your go-to space for raw conversations, curious questions, and inspiring stories from around the world. Whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just listen in, this is where ideas take shape and voices come alive. Ready to dive into fresh perspectives and thought-provoking discussions? Let's get started. This is the Podcast Lab. Subscribe now and never miss an episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You know, we're always talking about setting goals, but how often do we actually stop and think, are these even really my goals? Or am I just, kind of chasing after what I think everyone else expects of me or what I should be doing?
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's what we're going to be diving into today. How to set goals that actually light you up inside, not just add another thing to your to-do list.
Totally.
So we've got a bunch of really cool research articles and books we'll be looking at today to help us figure this all out. And we're excited to share them with you.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
So, one of the studies we're looking at today found that people who reach their goals, but they don't feel that spark inside, that satisfaction, they often end up feeling pretty empty.
Yeah, it's like they look successful on the outside, but inside there's that question like, is this all there is?
That's right. It's like you climb to the top of the ladder and you realize it's leaning against the wrong wall.
Yep.
So how do we make sure we're climbing towards something that really matters?
It starts with knowing the difference between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation.
Okay, break that down for us.
Okay, so extrinsic motivation is all about those external rewards, like money, recognition, praise,
Right.
But intrinsic motivation, that comes from within.
Okay.
It's driven by purpose and your values, aligning with what truly matters to you.
I love that. And that really ties into what one of the articles was saying about societal expectations can really shape our goals without us even realizing it.
Oh, for sure.
It's like you wake up one day and you're like, wait, why am I killing myself to get this promotion when deep down what I actually want to do is like travel the world or something?
Totally. It's so easy to fall into that trap of chasing what we think we should want.
Yeah.
Instead of what actually resonates with us, deep down.
Totally. And that's why getting clear on your values is so crucial. One of the books we're looking at today talks about it like your values are your inner compass.
Oh, I love that.
Always pointing you towards what truly matters.
Yeah, and Dr. Brené Brown, she was one of the authors we read, describes values as the how we live our lives.
Okay.
They're not just these lofty ideals, they're guiding principles that shape our choices every single day.
So how do we figure out what our values are? I mean, it's easy to just say like, honesty, kindness, those are my values.
Right.
But how do we get more specific?
Yeah.
More personal?
Well, one of the articles had this really cool exercise that I think you'll love.
Oh, lay it on us.
It's called the values auction.
Okay.
So imagine you're at an auction, you've got a limited amount of money to bid on different values.
Yeah.
Which ones are you going to spend the most on?
Oh, that's such a clever way to think about it. It makes you really prioritize.
Right.
And decide what's most important.
Yeah, like someone might be willing to bid high on creativity and freedom, but less on like wealth or status.
Exactly. And once you have a good understanding of your top values, then you can really see if your goals are actually in line with those values.
Yeah.
For instance, if one of your top values is freedom, but you're working towards this goal that requires you to be tied to a desk, 60 hours a week.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a disconnect there.
Big time.
And that's where that feeling of emptiness or, climbing the wrong ladder comes in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say you've done the values auction. You've got a good grasp on your core values. Now, how do we actually translate those values into concrete, meaningful goals?
That's where it gets fun.
All right, let's hear it.
One of the books we read suggested something called values-based goal setting,
Okay.
which basically means framing your goals in a way that directly connects them to your values.
So can you give us an example of what that would actually look like?
Yeah, so let's say one of your top values is creativity. Instead of setting a general goal like get a promotion, you can say something like find a role that lets me express my creativity and make a meaningful impact.
Wow. Okay, so it's like you're taking that same goal, but you're infusing it with your values.
Exactly.
It's not just about climbing the ladder anymore. It's about creating a work life that feels genuine.
Totally.
And aligned with who you are.
And that's what fuels that intrinsic motivation we were talking about earlier.
Great.
When your goals reflect your values, You're naturally more excited and driven to achieve them because it's not about external validation anymore.
It's about fulfilling a deeper sense of purpose.
Exactly.
All right, this is making a lot of sense. So we've figured out our values. We've started to frame our goals in a way that aligns with those values. What's the next step?
Now it's time to turn those values-based goals into action.
Okay.
One of the sources really emphasized the importance of breaking down those big, audacious goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
So instead of trying to climb Mount Everest in one giant leap, we set up base camps along the way.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really practical. One of the experts we read about, James Clear, he wrote the book Atomic Habits. He suggests a technique called habit stacking.
Okay, I've heard of that, but refresh my memory.
It's basically linking a new habit you want to build to an existing habit you already do.
So for example, if I wanted to start meditating every morning, but I always, struggle to make it stick, I could stack it onto something I already do, like brushing my teeth.
Exactly. You're using that momentum from the existing habit to help you stick with the new one.
That's brilliant.
It can be super helpful for achieving those smaller steps that lead to the bigger goals.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by this massive goal, you're focusing on those tiny, achievable actions that you can fit in to your day-to-day life.
Totally.
It's like building a bridge one brick at a time.
Perfect analogy.
And each brick is a little victory,
Exactly. And speaking of victories, one of the sources we read talked about how important it is to acknowledge and celebrate those wins along the way.
Even the small ones.
Especially the small ones, because they keep you motivated.
They give you that little pat on the back.
Exactly.
Like, hey, you're doing this, you're making progress.
Totally. And those little wins reinforce those positive feelings that come with going after your goals. And it makes you so much more likely to keep going even when things get tough.
Okay, so we've talked about breaking down goals, celebrating wins, using techniques like habit stacking to make those goals more manageable. But what about those moments when your motivation just dips?
Oh, yeah.
When you're just staring at your to-do list and you want to crawl back into bed.
Oh, we've all been there. Yeah,
for sure. So what do we do when that happens?
Well, one of the experts we read about, Dr. Heidi Grant, she suggested that one of the best things to do to kind of reignite that fire is to reconnect with your why.
Oh, yeah, go back to like that initial spark, the reason you set the goal in the first place.
Exactly. Remember that feeling, that excitement, the sense of purpose that got you started. Tap back into that.
Okay.
Like, why does this goal matter to you? What impact is it going to have on your life or on the lives of others sometimes? Just remembering that bigger picture is enough to get you going again.
It's like giving yourself a pep talk from your past self.
Yeah.
Hey, remember why we're doing this?
Yeah.
It's because, and then you fill in the blank with your personal why.
Exactly. Another strategy that came up a lot in our research was the power of finding inspiration from others.
Oh, yeah, like surrounding yourself with people who are also goal-oriented.
Yeah. It's not even just about being around go-getters. It's more about connecting with people who embody the values that you're striving for.
Yeah.
It could be mentors, friends, family members, even public figures who inspire you.
I see what you mean.
Seeing other people live out those values can be incredibly motivating. It reminds you that it's possible.
Yeah. One of the sources mentioned a study that found that people who regularly interacted with others who were passionate about their goals were more likely to achieve their own goal.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's like their energy and enthusiasm rubs off on you.
Totally. And don't underestimate the power of celebrating other people's successes, too.
Oh, that's a good point.
When we genuinely celebrate the wins of those around us, it can actually boost our own motivation.
I love that idea. It's like their success reminds us that achieving goals is possible, and it fuels our own desire to keep going. And, celebrating others is just good karma.
Absolutely. All right, let's switch gears for a sec and talk about something the sources called the perfection trap.
Oh, I think I know where this is going. That pressure to do everything perfectly, which can actually end up sabotaging our progress.
Exactly.
I know, I definitely struggle with that one.
You and pretty much everyone else, one study found that perfectionism is often linked to things like procrastination, anxiety, even depression.
Oh, wow.
Because we get so caught up in getting it just right that we never actually start, or we give up too easily when things aren't perfect.
Oof, yes. It's like that little voice in your head saying, not good enough, and then you just want to hide under the covers.
It's so common, but thankfully the sources had some good advice for overcoming perfectionism.
Okay, I'm all ears.
One that really stood out to me was setting realistic expectations.
So not trying to do everything at once, breaking those big goals down into smaller, more achievable steps.
Exactly. It's about progress, not perfection.
Okay.
Another big one was practicing self-compassion.
Oh, I love that, being kind to ourselves.
Yes, treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend who is struggling.
Yeah.
Remember, everyone makes mistakes. It doesn't mean you're not worthy or capable of achieving your goals.
So true.
Mistakes can actually be amazing learning opportunities if you have the right mindset.
So it's about replacing that negative self-talk with encouragement.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're doing great. Keep going. You've got this.
Exactly. And setbacks are normal. They're part of the journey.
For sure.
The key is to see them as chances to grow and learn, not as reasons to quit.
I like that.
One of the authors we read talked about having a growth mindset, believing that you can develop your abilities and intelligence through effort and hard work.
Okay.
When you embrace that, challenges become opportunities for growth, not threats to your ego.
Such a powerful shift in perspective.
Right. Instead of getting discouraged by a roadblock, you can ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience?
Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, celebrating our wins.
Oh, yes. Such a good point.
We often get so caught up in what's next, striving for that next milestone, that we forget to just pause and appreciate how far we've come.
We're all guilty of that.
It's like as soon as we check one thing off the list, we're on to the next, without taking a moment to acknowledge all the effort and dedication it took to get there.
It's so true, but taking that time to really savor your accomplishments is so important for your well-being and for staying motivated in the long run.
So it's not just about the destination, it's about enjoying the journey too.
Exactly, and it's about acknowledging all that hard work and resilience that got you there.
Okay.
One of the sources actually suggested creating a ritual for celebrating big wins.
Oh, what kind of ritual?
Anything that feels meaningful to you. It could be a fancy dinner, a weekend getaway, doing something you love. The key is to make it intentional,
I love that it's like creating a ceremony to honor your achievement and to give yourself permission to just bask in that success.
Exactly. So we've talked about setting goals that are truly yours, aligning them with your values, staying motivated, overcoming perfectionism, celebrating accomplishments. But what about when you finally achieve a big goal? Do you just move on to the next thing?
That's a great question. And I think it's something a lot of us struggle with, especially in our culture, that's so focused on achievement. We're always striving for that next thing.
Yeah.
But what about savoring those moments of accomplishment?
That's crucial, and it's something that came up in a lot of the sources we looked at. Taking time to truly savor your accomplishments is so important for your well-being and for staying motivated over time. It's so important for your well-being and for staying motivated over time.
So it's not just about reaching the destination. It's also about, like you were saying, enjoying the journey along the way.
Yes, exactly. And it's about really taking a moment to acknowledge all the hard work, all the dedication, all the resilience that it took to get you there.
I like that.
One of the sources we read suggested creating a ritual for celebrating big wins.
Oh, so like what kind of ritual?
I mean, anything that feels meaningful to you. It could be something simple. It could be like taking yourself out to a nice dinner, or maybe it's a weekend getaway, doing something you love. The key is to make it intentional.
Yeah, make it a special occasion.
Right. It's like you're creating a ceremony to honor your achievement and to really give yourself permission to bask in the glow of that success.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about, setting goals that are truly yours, aligning them with those values, staying motivated, overcoming that perfectionism, celebrating our accomplishments. But now,
right, what happens next?
What do we do with all of this information? How do we actually apply it to our lives?
Yeah.
It's great to talk about values and purpose and all of that, but how do we translate that into tangible actions?
That's a great question, and I think it can feel really overwhelming at first.
For sure.
But the good news is it doesn't have to be this huge, complicated process. One of the simplest but most effective strategies we came across was to just start with one small action.
Okay, so instead of trying to overhaul our entire lives at once, we just pick one area we want to work on and take a tiny step in that direction.
Exactly. For example, let's say you realize that connection is one of your top values, but you've been feeling kind of disconnected from your friends and family lately.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of setting this vague goal like spend more time with loved ones, you could commit to having like one meaningful conversation with a friend or a family member every week.
Right. And that's something you can do right now without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Exactly. And, as you start to incorporate these small, value-aligned actions into your daily life, you'll probably notice a shift in your energy, your motivation, your overall sense of fulfillment.
It's like those small actions create this ripple effect, slowly but surely, transforming our lives in a way that feels really authentic and aligned with who we are.
I love that analogy. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone, One of the sources talked about finding a supportive community.
Right.
Whether that's a group of friends, a mentor, or even like an online forum.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can share your goals and challenges and support each other.
It's like we're all in this together, cheering each other on.
And that brings us to the core of what we've been talking about today. Your goals aren't just about achieving something external. They're about becoming the person you want to be.
It's not just about the destination. It's about the journey and who we become along the way.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Ooh, I like these.
If you could achieve one goal that perfectly reflected your values and aspirations, what would it be?
What's that one thing that if you accomplished it, you would feel truly fulfilled and aligned with your purpose? Take some time to really think about that. Let it simmer. And then start taking those small, meaningful steps towards making that goal a reality.
Remember, even the most ambitious goals are achieved one step at a time, and the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
That's it for our deep dive today. Thanks for joining us. We hope you found it helpful and feel inspired to chase those dreams that truly light you up.
And remember, never stop growing, never stop learning, and never stop becoming the best version of yourself.
Until next time, keep striving, keep dreaming, and keep becoming up.